All we have to do is still use the elevator. We're on the 7th floor. Looks good, doesn't she?
Yes, she does.
She really likes it.
She has not suffered at all from becoming an adult.
And we I just put herbs out.
Fred Casey, see Fred over there by the window? He went to UVA with Alarie and also majored in English.
I've got all these little chevalier plants coming up. Need to find home. That's the hardest. Alarie looks good. I didn't recognize that.
She told me she wears that dress to almost every reading.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
My name's Fred Casey, and it's my privilege and honor to introduce Alarie. Alarie and I were known each other for quite a while, from junior high school on, and have a love of English. We're English majors at UVA, and she's been a great friend to me. When you buy the book, this cannot do that. On that page lists all of her achievements, and I'll go through some of these. She's had 3 publications, Waking the Moon, Running Counterclockwise, and the third one is Spiraling into Control, and has been nominated for several awards and won a couple. But I think I can blame Alarie for my love of poetry and my hatred of poetry.
And my husband didn't want me to introduce him today because he said it was my day, but he's brought a good part of the audience here because he did live in Portsmouth for 4 years when he taught at Virginia Beach Junior High School. So he has some former students and faculty that he worked with and daughters of faculty he worked with. And Miss Chris Purcell, the back counter, he was an English major, and which is how I met him, and English teacher, and then became a graphic designer for Hallmark, and then I went to work at Hallmark, so we followed each other different places as we went on. And Fred, as he said, has been a friend for years and done many, many favors for me. The best one was telling me, I'm throwing a party next week, and you can't come unless you invite Chris Purcell. Because he knew that our romance was kind of going very slowly, and he was trying to push me to make the first move, which I didn't want to do. And so, as those of you who did know me back when, I was very, very shy, and so this is a whole new me, having come out in public and read to groups like this, but I'm doing it, so. We haven't been back to Portsmouth in a very long time. It's hard when you move away from everybody you know because you can't keep up with them with correspondence until now that we have Facebook and email. But when I left, it was just impossible. Plus, I was trying to start a new career, which turned out to go into writing. So you didn't want to write 40 hours a week and come home and write long letters. So people were lucky if they got a Christmas card, and I've reconnected over the last 8 years or so thanks to Facebook. So a lot of you are Facebook friends that I hadn't seen in 40 years, so it's great to have that. This first poem is about driving straight through Portsmouth. I think about 5 years ago, we went straight through to the Norfolk Airport, and we didn't stop. And we didn't know where we were. And it changed so much, like, where's the turn? We were having to read street signs because the landmarks were gone or changed. There were new things. There were big holes where there used to be things, and then there were new things. So this is about that. Homecoming. To go back to your hometown and find it doesn't recognize you. To see your old house bedraggled, like hand-me-downs left to goodwill. Gutters stripped, azaleas gone, for no good reason, except it's not your home. To dread awkward reunions almost as much as not running into anyone you know. To get a little lost, finding landmarks, have run away with your childhood. To startle at the silver-haired man walking by, who's too much like your dad. To feel gutted by the gap that was your high school, but jealous of a new museum and elegant restaurants where you'll never have a favorite table. To understand this strange place doesn't feel like home, but always will be. Now, before I get into my family poems, I'm realizing that I haven't introduced my brother who's here today. In all my bios for my books, it says I grew up with my brother, the genius, who was destined for NASA, and he's here today, Jeff Tennille, with his wife, Marty. So, up until age 10, I lived in Port Norfolk in a very old house, and we didn't have central air conditioning. So our chief summer occupation was trying to stay cool. So Ocean View, where that was set, was one of my favorite places. And there'll be several other poems on the same theme of keeping cool and going to beaches. Keeping cool. The used car was a steal, Daddy said. Air conditioning. So we piled in and headed for Richmond, Broad Street, downtown. Scalding pavement. What did we care that traffic crawled? We enjoyed the novelty of not sweating. The woman in the next car seemed cool too, as she asked Mama, "Did you know you're on fire?" Flames shot up from the chassis. My brother saved himself. Watched from the corner as Mama turned into Wonder Woman, yanking me up and over the front seat. Of course, we didn't have seatbelts. Now the three of us stood on the curb, yelling at Daddy. The fireman with the bullhorn yelled too. "Sir, get out of the car, now!" But Daddy just stayed cool. Now we're going back to Ocean View. Summer nights at the Ocean View Fishing Pier, Norfolk, Virginia. I tried to fish in those circles of light to see what I was pulling up. The croaker, spot, rockfish, or flounder for Sunday supper, or things that made me squeal for Daddy.
No.
Eels, carnival glass, says Mama, who always knows things. Can I keep it, I ask, half expecting Blackbeard to come snatch it away. The chicken matched Mama's, but those dumplings, more like heavy clods of Arkansas clay than Mama's sea breeze dumplings from Georgia. We still miss Mama's poetry on a plate. You probably noticed by now that I usually write in free verse, partly because I wrote a lot of verse for Hallmark and I wanted my two kinds of poetry to be different. I actually learned to scan poetry from my mother when I was a child because she would recite long nonsense poems. She loved poetry and books. And so every once in a while, if I do too much research for a poem, I start sounding like I'm writing a National Geographic article instead of a poem. And I decide if I write in verse, then that's a problem that's fixed. So this is a sonnet written in the point of view from a pigeon. Message from a messenger pigeon. I'm not enslaved, despite the fact I'm bred for serving humans. Who is wholly free? You're flattered that I'll risk my life for you, when coming home is all that counts to me. In Pharaoh's day, you shaped your words like birds, and those who walked and flew were more alike. Although you build fierce flying things that kill, you still can't recreate my homebound flight. You batter new recruits to bend their will, but know I must be trained with tender care. Unless you make me feel at home with you, someone else can earn your croix de guerre. I never take an oath I don't believe. Your cause or theirs, it's all the same to me. This is my best known, best celebrated poem, probably because it took about 2 years to write, and I'm thankful they all don't. We saw the quilts from Gee's Bend, Alabama in the High Museum in Atlanta on a vacation. And it was about a year after that that I saw PBS special about the quilt. So I took notes to make the poem, and it still took a long time. But this has been nominated for 2 pushcart prizes, and it won the Goodreads Poetry Contest 1 month, which means they run it in their newsletter that goes out to over 1 million people. And I was contacted by several quilting organizations asking to run it in their newsletter. The Quilters of Gee's Bend. Seems like that old river tied itself in a knot just to keep black folks there at Gee's Bend, while time and fortune swept on by. And Master Petway gave those folks his name, but stripped everything else he could, left just scraps, but they were used to that. So those hands that hardly needed something else to do unraveled their worn-out world, pieced together remnants of Africa and raggedy dreams to make something new. Let dress tails dance with breeches, heat from the cotton fields pressed deep in their seams. So tired of plowed furrows, they let their stitches bend now and then, just like that river. Nothing perfect, yet God was in the details. And the quilters called that making do, and visiting, and keeping warm, and pulling out memories each night, till one day they were told, we call that art. Thank you so much.
Help me clap.